Welcome to the Innovative Hotelier, brought to you by Hostels magazine. I'm your host, Robin Trimingham. When I mention the word hostel, many people conjure up images of backpacks and bunk beds and not much more. But today's hostel market is big business. In 2021, the global hostel market was valued at $4.89 billion, and it's predicted to reach $8.89 billion by 2027. My guest today, Oliver Winter, is the founder and CEO of A&O Hostels, the world's largest independently owned hostel chain. And he's here today to share his insights regarding successfully growing a disruptive niche in the hospitality industry. Join me now for my conversation with Oliver. FOH is a global food service and hospitality company that manufactures smart commercial-grade solutions. Headquartered in Miami, the company designs and manufactures all their restaurant and hotel products. They have showrooms and distribution centers located throughout the globe, and their products are always in stock and ready to ship from any of their distribution centers worldwide. Welcome, Oliver. It's great to chat with you today.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks for having me here.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to our conversation. I have a very diverse hotel background, but hostels is not something that I would say I'm personally an expert on. So I think I'm going to learn some things too during our conversation. To start us off, though, if I've got this right, the idea for your hostel chain, A&O, actually somehow started in the basement of a liquor store? This is a story I think I need to hear.
That's a funny point. Yeah, that's true. The idea, or I met this idea of hostels during traveling around the world. Between finishing high school and before I started to study, I had some time and traveled really on, I always say, on no budget. Yeah, so in this time, it's 7 months with $6,000 around the world, including the flight. So that was really not low budget. That was no budget. And back to Germany, back in Berlin, I had in my mind really this idea to create a hostel in Berlin. And that was more complicated than I thought in the beginning, because you have to deal with real estate, find a landlord and all this stuff, giving guarantees. You speak about a lot of money, and so that was not as easy as I thought in the beginning. And during my studies, I worked in a beverage market, then I figured out it was really hard to find all the time to make my studies, to work on this hostel idea, and then be in a shift schedule of this beverage market. And then I said, okay, what is more easy than to found a hostel is to open my own liquor shop. And then I had the time to serve my first clients, had some learnings as an entrepreneur. And whenever there was no client, no customer in my shop, I went down to the basement and had a small office and worked on this hostel idea. So that's how it happened.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. I thought you were going to tell me you had bunk beds in the basement under the liquor store.
Oh, no, nothing like this. Nothing like this.
So you've been in this game for a long time compared to some people. How would you say the hostel concept has evolved during the last few years?
So I would say it's really impressive to see how many different players are in the market. So for every taste, customer's taste, you find an offer in the market. There are very small ones, boutique ones, beach hostels, big boxes like ours, cozy places, green hostels, etc. And so for every taste, there's a right offer. What we see at A&O is in the last 23 years, the standard lifted up for example, when we started, we had really this common bathrooms, end of the hallway, and very, very, very simple equipped guest rooms. Today, we operate 99% of our rooms all with private bathrooms, maximum 8-bedded, and a lot of private twins and single rooms as well. Much more focus on all the common areas. These common spaces are today even for you have these big working tables, for the digital nomads, so to say. You have these, a lot of zonings in the common area, bar, fancy bar, a nice outside yard, and all this stuff. So that changed. But I would say the biggest requirement since the last 5-10 years is really to have high-speed internet, high-speed Wi-Fi everywhere, and in an arm length a socket.
Yeah, I think you're right. That would be the same everywhere. Okay, so you're making me want to ask you a secondary question here, because you're talking about private rooms with private baths. In your mind, explain to us how this is still hostel and not a budget hotel.
Yeah, good point. So we like to combine the best of both worlds under one roof. So we see us more as a hybrid. We 50% of our rooms are really, I would say, more or less budget hotel rooms, and the other 50% are really these what we call dorms or dormitories. Okay. So multi-bedded rooms. And all the guests meet in the same common spaces. And what, for example, is standing for a hostel is to have these laundries for the guests. You have a common kitchen to use, stuff like this. Yeah.
All right, that makes sense. So you've come a long way from your very humble beginning, and today understand that your main competitors would be Airbnb and value hotel chains. What advice can you offer for competing with international brands as a boutique operator yourself?
I think first, clear positioning is key. Yeah, so that's very important that you have a clear focus. What you like to do. For example, for A&O, its focus is first on price and location, and even high volume. So we're running quite big houses, but whatever you do make clear that you have a clear positioning. And I would say the good news for all operators is that the guests today, I would call it, they are fluid. So you don't have this type of guest for a lifetime bounded to a brand. That's more depending on occasion, on the travel purpose or travel occasion, and that means you even at A&O, sometimes we're wondering which type of guests we see in our houses, and for sure next time these guests are using a totally different product.
Okay, so let's dive into this one a little bit deeper. I read, I think it was Hostel World did a report, and they said that 80% of the hostel travelers worldwide are under the age of 35. Do you see that demographic in your properties, or are you getting a different mix?
No, I would confirm this number even for A&O. So that's same 80% are Gen Z, the millennials. So from 0 to 35, that's even our major focus of our customers, of our clients. That's similar.
Okay. During the pandemic, which I think we're all ready to stop talking about, but it's still relevant in some ways because we're living the new reality of the situation. I read that quite a few hostels, they either had to close or they had to change how they were operating, how many guests they could accommodate to comply with safety regulations and all of that. Talk to me about how you handle a big impact like that to your revenue stream. And, what would advice can you offer to other operators about all of this?
Yeah. That was, as you mentioned, that was for us in hospitality, that was a terrible moment. Yeah, it was a full stop moment from full speed to full stop. And we are massively affected economically and even psychologically. So from 1 second to the other, nobody needed us anymore. Yeah, that made something with our employees. And on the other hand, of course, that was this hit, the revenue stream melt down to zero. To give you an idea, in 2020 or 2019, VSA&O, we had a revenue of 150 million euros. In 2020, we had a revenue of 60 million. So that was really
less than half. Yeah.
Yeah, really massive. And so what we did, the most what we could do was really talking and explaining and asking people to support us. And it was so my job in these days, when I remember, was on the one hand really to motivate the employees, yeah, not to leave, so to say, a sinking ship, yeah, and stay on board and stay engaged. And on the other hand, really to ask every day our suppliers for deferrals, for reductions. And I would say we handled this quite successful. So I remember in February 2020, COVID arrived Europe, and in March, 1 month later, we still had a monthly cost of 8 million euros. In April, we've been down to 4 million. Yeah, and that was just because of really every supplier, really everyone was willing to help us, because it was obvious that it was not our fail. Yeah, and so really to phone everyone every day, to explain situation, to ask for help. That was the biggest support for A&O. Yeah, that was more impacting us in a positive way than the government help. What kicked in much later, what was even, of course, welcome and helped us to stabilize. But yeah, I would say in a crisis like this, my learning was really full open, speak to everyone, try to be as transparent as possible, and talking. Yeah.
Established in 2002, FOH is a woman-owned global food service and hospitality company that manufactures smart, savvy, commercial-grade products, including plateware, drinkware, flatware, hotel amenities, and more. Driven by innovation, FOH is dedicated to delivering that wow experience that restaurants and hotels crave, all while maintaining a competitive price. All products are fully customizable, and many are also created using sustainable, eco-friendly materials such as straws and plates made from biodegradable paper and wood, and PBA-free drinkware. FOH has 2 established brands: Front of the House, focused on tabletop and buffet solutions, and Room 360, which offers hotel products. Check out their collections today at fohworldwide.com. Some of the other hoteliers that I've been working with have talked about realizing, as a result of all of this, that there were other market segments, other revenue streams that they could be pursuing. Have you felt like you can be working on your business model as a result of all of this, or do you recommend that anybody else in the hospital business take a look at that?
Yeah, so we had two learning, or we tried 2 things in this time, and one is still something we learned during the pandemic, and even doing it today due to the pandemic. That was more focused to long stay. So we started to partner with universities, yeah, and equipped or changed the equipment in our rooms. So added, for example, a working desk in each room, a better chair for the working desk, and stuff like this. And so then we could achieve some deals with some universities for students, and that is still something we still doing. And what we did just during pandemic, we opened our houses for social distressed people. So we partnered with municipalities that been here in Europe, a lot of refugees in this time and even homeless during the winter period. We had to fill 30,000 beds, yeah, and so our idea was, yeah, better to do something and even give us sense for our work, yeah, and not to lose the employees and even lose all the skills we have, yeah, and so we did this quite successful in many cities.
I think that's a very admirable approach that you took to this very difficult situation. And it just goes to show, doesn't really matter what business you're in. If you employ creativity, there's just about always a way through what I'm going to call a crisis moment. Let's change the conversation a little bit. Things are looking up for all of us. You know, I wouldn't say that my home jurisdiction has fully recovered from a tourism perspective, but we're getting there, and people are starting to take a more forward-looking view. I read that there's well over 15,000 hostels registered worldwide. Lots of them are in faraway places like Asia. What's your advice regarding doing due diligence when you're considering opening a new property in a new city or embarking on opening properties in a whole new market like another country?
Mm. So yeah, we are as you know, we are European based and European focused so far, and so our aim is to open 2 to 3 new assets per year, what is quite organic, yeah, and so we can handle this quite good, so when we look for a new destination, first we speak with our existing partners like Hostel World or other OTAs, yeah, where they see demand, or we just confirm if we have an idea about a city and listen and learn from these sources if we are right with our expectations. And then really we go into a city, and starting usually on in the city center where the main train station is, central station or something else, and starting really to investigate which is the right building, which is the right property for us, and then we try to approach direct the landlord and start with the negotiation. So for us, important is that the city has a certain amount of touristic demand. Yeah, that's for us really important, because we know we create a little bit of own demand, but usually we go in a city and we just like to take out a little bit of this existing market share and steer to a no.
Talk to me a little bit about loyalty. I know that with other national brands, loyalty is a real thing, and they'll try very hard to develop a client base that only wants to stay with that brand, to the point when they're planning a trip, they'll look for a city where that brand exists. Inside the hostel world, is that a thing for you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't have the answer if it really works in the end or not. But anyway, we started even with a program like this last year. What you have to do to be attractive, you have to give special offers to people joining your program, yeah, to give some special discounts, etc. And of course, the idea behind this is to avoid then higher fees you would pay to the OTAs, for example. It's as I said before, I believe more in this kind of fluid customer, yeah, that the customer is not sticking so much to one brand, because I see it even with my own behavior, yeah. I would not say I'm addicted or sticking to this or this brand, customers today are they're curious, they like to try out new things, and
Okay, so that's very interesting to hear your perspective on this one. If you have a client base that's 80% age 35 and under, Are you at risk that your client base is going to outgrow your concept, or do you continually just draw on new people coming up? If I'm saying it right.
No, I would say the last thing you mentioned. So because we have the big luck, we are attractive for people from 0 to 35. So that means we have 35 years to support our customers, in their life cycle, and that means they're starting as kids, when the family is joining us, and the family stays at A&O. They come in the ideal way. They visit us as pupils during their school trips. They come later back as with sport groups, as with their first friends, as couples, and even then during the student time as with student trips, and later then with the family again as a young mother, young father, and their own kids. So 35 years it's a long period. What I see as a bigger risk here is that from this generation, we know that 20 to 25% today have really climate consciousness. And I know a study from last year from booking.com, where booking.com is saying that 20 to 25% of the Gen Z is not entering a plane today anymore.
Wow.
So that's massive. And if we would not act and not give answers here, if imagine 20 or 25% just silent step out of the market, so to say, and not joining us anymore, that would be a brutal impact for the industry.
Yeah, I think for the hotel industry at large, it's interesting to see where some of these trends are actually heading. The perfect segue into my next question, though, because you recently announced a very admirable and aggressive plan to take A&O net zero by 2025. I mean, that's a year and a half from now. How's that going?
Yes, thanks for asking this, because that's really one of our what I'm driving a lot, and even our employees driving this road to zero a lot here at A&O. And so we started quite early in 2015. Was the first year we monitored our footprint and get a feeling and understand what is paying or contributing to the footprint, how it is calculated, etc. And then it started that we could even try to optimize it. First you have to understand it, you have to know it, and then you can start to control it. And in 15 we started with around 9 kilogram, a little 9 kilogram carbon footprint per overnight. That was already quite few, quite less compared to economy or mid-scale hotel overnight would be 20 to 25 kilogram. And that's if you think about it, it's quite obvious, because the density in a hostel is higher, so you need less space per person. You have these 4-bedded, 6-bedded rooms, and that brings your socket, so to say, to a lower base. And then we said, okay, this 9 kilograms, that's already like a treasure we are sitting on. It's let's try to optimize it and get it lower. And there was really the biggest tailwind we had been our employees. They had so many ideas, what to avoid, what to make better, and we started with this journey. And then in 2020, during pandemic, there was really, I would say, a personal wow effect for me. We as a family, we decided, there have been, remember, all these stay home campaigns, and we decided, but let's go for 10 days, make a break, and we decided to make a long distance holiday, to make a journey to Dubai. And when we started to talk to our neighbors and ask, could you take care of our cats and blah, blah, and they also been shocked and said, but you should stay home and you should not travel. And then I realized, in just in a few weeks, we developed as a society, we developed something I would call travel shame. And then I realized, if this could happen so quick, from 2 months before, everyone traveled around the world, and just because people said stay home, we all stayed home, and if we really imagine that this would happen for climate consciousness, yeah, maybe not in 4 weeks, but in 4 years or in 6 years, we have a really, really big issue, yeah, and a big problem as industry. And that was this momentum. We accelerated our to zero and said we need a date close by, and we need a realistic date. And then we said, okay, it will take us another 2-3 years to optimize our carbon footprint, really to take up, turn every stone, yeah, take it up, turn around every stone, and get it down by own efforts first, and then whatever is remaining, hopefully less than 3 kilogram. We reached last year already 3.5 kilogram, coming from 9.
Well, that's good.
That's a massive reduction. And then this remaining 2.5, 2.6, whatever remains, we will mandatory offset. So that's the plan.
Okay, so you are so far ahead of the game in this particular category. I'm really actually very impressed. I mean, to have started for real in 2015, that's very early compared to a lot of other chains. Let's talk about the carbon offset credits a little bit. In your opinion, is any old carbon offset credit good, or are we being ethical in how we are choosing what we're purchasing, what we're supporting?
Yeah, I think two things are important. First, before you start with offset, it's really that you tried everything to get your own footprint down. I think that's really important, because otherwise it's just like the Catholic Church worked in the last 2000 years. Yeah, you make something wrong and then you pay and everything is fine. Yeah, so that should not be the way how it works. So, but as long as you still have ongoing efforts in saving or avoiding your carbon footprint, I think then it's fine to start with offsetting. And here it's a really complicated world. There are so many different approaches and different suppliers, etc. And what we learned, there's one standard. It's called gold standard. And this is controlled and has we choosing just these gold standard products. Maybe there are different approaches. I'm really not an expert in this offsetting yet, yeah, because our way right now is still to reduce it. But my understanding is that it has to fulfill specific standards.
I agree with you. I don't think anybody's an expert on all of this yet. I'm very interested in your approach to all of this. I've heard stories of other hoteliers doing things like putting grass or gardens on the roof of the building and beekeeping. Are you guys doing anything like that?
But yeah, we de-sealing, so to say, some of our yards where there's still a lot of concrete, and open this, yeah, for, renaturing this. What we started last year is to roll out photovoltaic units to our roofs. So installing photovoltaic plants on our roofs. We invested last year a lot into insulation of the buildings. That was, remember, in Europe we had last winter we had this energy crisis and this risk now that there's not enough energy to heat all the buildings, etc. So that was one of our major focus. So we're doing a lot.
We've got a couple of minutes here. There's been a lot of talk in the media with the analysts about whether the travel surge we've been experiencing is just pent-up demand or whether it's a trend that's here to stay. And you've just made a couple of really excellent points about, some categories of travelers actually choosing to pull back altogether and just plain old not fly places. What's your take on this situation? Is this pent-up demand? Is this real growth? Where are we?
Robin, a good question. Last year, for sure, it was a lot of pent-up demand. And I would say when I saw these first months of this winter, January, February, we saw first time we and even our peers, we saw there been weeks with less demand than 19. And so I would say from a personal perspective that the pent-up demand is over. And even when you look to many revenue statements and from tourism companies, tour operators, for example, they're all saying, yeah, we're doing more revenues than 19. But if you look deeper into these numbers, you see they all have less clients than 19 and just more revenue because of much higher rates.
Rate. Yeah. Interesting point. I think that's very insightful.
Yeah.
So my last question for you, and I ask everybody that I chat with a version of this one. What's the biggest mistake that you feel other hostel operators are making, and why do you say this?
I wouldn't say that other operators doing big mistakes, yeah, because I see many even quite successful operators and peers in the market. I think the biggest challenge, especially if you work on a budget segment, yeah, what we all do in this hostel segment, is that if you have success, that you don't develop your product to make it not too fancy over the years, too posh and automated, too expensive. Yeah, because then you're losing your old customer base. I think it's really important that even if you are successful, that you stick to your base, what made you successful. Yeah.
Yeah, clean and simple and welcoming.
Yeah.
Oliver, thank you very much. This has been a very enlightening conversation. You've been watching The Innovative Hotelier. Join us again soon for more up-to-the-minute information specifically for the hotel and hospitality industry.